Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and this is Friday. But before we go any further, I need to say thank you to Dirty Scooby for subbing for a second month in a row. Thank you, Dirty Scooby, for your continued loyalty. And all you do as our events coordinator, I'll give you a chance to talk today since you're here, and we'll go over some of those details if you're ready. But in the meantime, let's celebrate by showing us your clades. Also, I want to make sure to give Jurius his alert. Thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole, Eve Online. All right, so I'm going to bring on Discord. Boop. Hey, Pizdra, also, thank you so much for that 8-month
Warping to
streak.
Stargate.
Ooh, boy, it's good to have you here, Pizdra. You know I love you like a brother. Let's celebrate by showing us the clades! Alright. I've got a lot of people here that are wanting to hear, like, real stuff and not my shtick. So we should probably get to it. Or not.
Love you, brother.
Thanks, Pizdra. Nova Surge, thank you for joining us.
They would be immortal.
Okay, so I have a couple things I need to go over today. In particular, like, obviously, so one thing I want to point out, because I don't know if this has really been locked in yet, but we are literally having an alliance meeting every week. Some of them are getting disrupted, obviously, because of one reason or another. Like, they don't always happen, but they're happening more often than not. And the point is to have them happening at a very regular interval, so that way there's always an opportunity for both major time zones to be able to communicate and get their points across. So the point of these meetings isn't necessarily to always just be like giant broadcasts of information. It's really designed to be opportunities for sounding boards and to just make sure that we're all on the same page constantly. If it ever isn't working out for anybody, obviously, you know, just go ahead and message me or any of the other leadership, and we'll get right on that. But the whole point of this, like, I feel like people are, like, it's every other Friday at 1700 and every other Tuesday at it's complicated because it's, of course, after hours. So it's like, it's Wednesday Eve time 01, which is Tuesday evening US. So there's a evening US and a morning US. The morning US is on Fridays. The evening US is on Tuesdays. That's how it is right now, and it alternates every other week. So if for some reason you hadn't caught on to the fact that there is a structure to it, hopefully we're trying, or I'm trying to use that as a mechanism to be able to maximize our ability to communicate with one another. Oh yeah, no, it is my resume at this point.
Consideration is complicated.
Yeah, constantly trying to get feedback and make people feel like they're connected. You know, because if somebody feels like they're disconnected, they don't think that that's a problem that they can solve. They just don't feel like there's a connection. So it's important to find the lost souls and get them wired in as much as we possibly can. A miscommunication or a misperception is as much a fault of our leadership as it is of the member that has that false perception. All right, so let's get to it. One of the things I want to talk about today is the fact that our leadership as the convocation, our purpose for existence as a convocation, in my opinion, has started to solidify. I'm starting to get an idea for what the vision of what we are doing is. And, you know, if I could be so bold, I would suggest that what that is nothing short of building a better way of players engaging with EVE Online. EVE Online is a sandbox game, which means they can put in all of the tools, but ultimately the training, the understanding of those tools, there's chunks of that that's going to probably have to come from us, you know. And what we've discovered from our interactions with a lot of the new NPE or PvE in particular is that if you look at it correctly, you can, instead of looking at it as like an ISK per hour mechanism, you can find it as a series of activities that can be engaged with in order to learn the mechanics of the game to be better to do future activities, both competitive and cooperative, while also maybe making ISK. And if we focus on it that way, then we've discovered that people come to understand the game way faster, feel more comfortable with taking more bold actions and doing cooler stories in their sandbox earlier, and have a lower rate of just burning out. And even when they do, even if they do come back, burn out, the time before they come back seems to be shorter, and like maybe it's just a refractory period for them to rally and then make a go for it, right? Like I feel like we are presenting the challenge that is EVE Online in a better way and offering people better tools to engage with that, which goes back to the original statement, which is that our goal is maximizing player engagement with EVE Online. And that's not just internally within our organization. That's for everybody. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of what we do tries to be public. It's why the tools that we're going to be building are going to be for everybody. We're trying to make a better EVE, not just a better convocation of Empyreans in EVE. We're not trying to win EVE. We're trying to make EVE better. So that's my vision. I hope that functions as a high enough goal and rallying point that we can function as a collective with our eye on the prize. I feel like it has been successful so far, and I feel like that is kind of the trend that has been the most, like, it's been our calling, and so I just wanted to call it out for what it is. So to that effect, there's even more changes going to be happening. Just to recap, last year was experimentation. This year, solidification. We're locking down our policies. We're building SRPs. We're building SOPs. We're also building SRPs. But and so we're looking at all the things that we tinkered around with last year. We're saying, okay, well, how do we make it work now? What does it look like to get the most out of the systems that we play with? And to that effect, we're going to be doing a lot of stuff to make that happen. So I know I've said it before, but once again, if you want to get involved in any activities through the Corp, if you're good at an activity, if you want to learn an activity about EVE Online, now's a good time to start voicing that opinion in Discord. If you do something and would like to wire it in somehow to the collective whole, that's another reason to bring it up. One of the most common mistakes I've learning is that we actually have experienced people who are trying to handle everything. And so they end up, they find their bullshit and they don't want to inflict it on other people, or they feel like it's part of the job or whatever. And so this makes them either feel like they need additional reward, or they feel like they're being slighted, or it's us versus them, or any of those kinds of issues come from that. But the whole point of this idea is that no one person should have to do what they don't want to do. Because no matter what, one person's bullshit is another person's opportunity. If my industrial manager hates to haul, that's fine. We have somebody else who cannot process everything that it takes to figure out how to do an industry program, but God damn it, if you give him some ore and tell him to go, it will get from one place to another and he'll feel good about it. So the person that spends time hauling when he doesn't want to is not only hurting himself because he is spending time doing the thing that he doesn't want to do instead of the thing that he's good at and effective at, but also the person that could be good and effective at that thing isn't being able to do that, isn't getting the value that he could have. And so one of the focuses really about having these defined structures is to ensure that there's a way that everyone knows how to do their part and engage in whichever piece of the system that they want to, while using the broader system to their advantage. And the more we do that, the stronger we become collectively. If you get that done right, then the individual profit margins cease to matter, because the entire effort is collective, and it represents a collective moving forward with strength. So, that's kind of what we're focusing on. Piece of that is that in order to be an effective high-sec empire, we have to project throughout the empire. In addition to that, we have a wormhole, a C2 wormhole, which I've been telling people for months that we can use, but isn't necessarily effective for the purposes of like sites, for example. C2s don't have that much stuff for a whole bunch of people. And so the most useful advantage to us when it comes to this wormhole is its
connectivity.
Yeah, is the connectivity, is the high-sec connection itself, and the nature of wormhole space. And so what we're going to be doing is converting our wormhole as much as we can into a roving headquarters. The idea being is that every day it's connected to two new places in high-sec. Each place it connects, wherever it connects, will be useful to someone somehow. It doesn't matter if it's connected to Solitude, or near Mar, or near Jita, or near that giant cache of Rakavine that's been sitting there for like a month since we mined it out in invasions, and Jesus Christ, we mine a fucking freighter load of Rakavine every single goddamn invasion. Wherever it connects, there's going to be useful reasons to do that. The wormhole itself is a nullsec region, so if we just continually use whatever it's connected to its maximum advantage, and transform the wormhole into a place where we can project our strength out of, knowing that A, it doesn't really matter where it's connected to at any given time, as long as we're patient, but more importantly, B, we can also roll it if we need to get it to be somewhere where we want it to be. And I think that having the best bet to work with wormhole in the future is not to necessarily focus on OPSEC. I think we're past the threshold of OPSEC. It's a C2 high-sec wormhole. Like, it's going to be discovered. People know it. Congratulations, right? Like, the bigger key is that we need to have so much presence there that it is difficult to... It's no longer functionally wormhole space to us, right? Like, we have scouts on gates, and there's so many people moving around and doing so many different things in there that no one can get a foothold besides us. So to that credit, we've anchored a Raitaru and an Athenor in there for refining and manufacturing. We have moved in a lot of stuff, and going to be moving in even more stuff for QRF forces. We have been and will be building capitals in the wormhole, because that way we can have those defenses and they can't. Word of note, though, the efforts in the wormhole are collective, and so while a lot of the wormholers have been and are making money off of that, things like capital production moving forward are going to be significantly restricted. We are not going to allow people to just have their own custom capitals, because therein lies mutiny. So expect a lot of commitment by the Alliance to provide you the tools to just simply exploit the advantage of the wormhole. And we're going to move forward with that in that sense. Hey, Pockets. Did I miss anything about Holmes? Does I know we've got White Wolf here, I think, right?
Yeah, what's up?
Hey, man. So White Wolf has actually done a really good job of keeping the wormhole like ticking, even when it wasn't being like actively worked on. Do you have anything to say about like how it's going, or?
I guess there's not really much to say. Word, I guess.
Yep.
Finally
right.
expanded. That's good.
Yeah, so one of the biggest keys is that I don't want anyone to feel like they've been screwed over. So I know that there's a few people that have committed stuff into the holes already. the Alliance is prepared to purchase that from you retroactively, to make sure that people, like, you know, the idea is that we have to have that level of security just because of the nature of the beast. But at the same time, I don't want to make it be like, haha, you know. So anybody who does want to engage with that, industrialists, I want to be very clear. We are not moving all industry. One of the concerns that got brought up is that when I said we're moving our headquarters into homes, people read that as like we're ripping up all of our structures and bringing it all into homes. No, just like our previous low-sec efforts, none of this like pulls back any of our high-sec efforts. If anything, this is to make that easier. The goal here.
Do you want me to talk about our wormhole custodian?
Yes, thank you. I'll get that in just a second. The goal here isn't to tell you that you have to move into the wormhole. So if you're having that anxiety, don't have that anxiety. My goal is to, over time, help you understand that there's no reason not to and that you want to. So if it's not safe enough, if it's not easy enough, if it's not, if it's too problematic, and it's worth it to you to remain in high sec and work in like Pamene or elsewhere to do your industry, you know, A, don't feel bad about that fact, and B, if there is a reason why, let me know. Maybe we can figure out a way to fix it. That being said, we will not be, just as a word of advice, don't move any Blueprint originals into the wormhole. Don't move anything permanent into the wormhole. The whole goal here is that anything infrastructure-wise that's being moved in is Alliance. So that way, if it all burns, it's all just our collective crap. Who gives a shit? Like, don't put anything in there that you'd feel bad if somebody comes and blows it up, because they will. We should be making copies of blueprints and moving them into the hole. That being said, in order to help with the maintenance of our wormhole and management of the whole process, Fonsui has brought in a ringer, who I will let him talk about real quick.
Thank you. I have asked my good friend Pez, who plays the characters that you may have seen in Holmes already, named Sanction. He's lived and managed wormhole space for longer than most of us have played Eve. He's dedicated and loyal, and his purpose in our organization is very simple. He is there to make sure that anyone who is engaging with that wormhole is getting what they want. He's there. He is our first line of defense. He is there to keep his finger on the pulse. And if something is going right, you should tell him. If something is going wrong, you should tell him. If you need to get in, you should tell him. If you need to get out, you should tell him. There are other people who can do these things for you, but he is there for that thing. And you can rely on him 100% to do everything that was within his power or within his promise to help you accomplish the goals that you want to in there. If it is beyond his specific scope, then he will bring it to leadership.
The fun thing about him in particular is that he's Aussie. So he's actually in the off time zone. So chances are, if I'm not around, or one of the other people that are often there to give answers aren't around, then he will be. So I'm really excited about that. Obviously, if you try to get a hold of him or reach out to him and any of what Fonsui says did not end up being true, please bring it to my attention so that way I can address the issue. In addition to that, I want to stress the fact that there is a Myro Homes Intel channel. It is insufficient. As with all of our channels, we do not have any official in-game communications. Okay, none. Besides Eve-mail, right? None of the chat channels are an official in-game communication. So Discord is the only way to properly coordinate things. We've had several events in the last week, little and large, that effectively amounted to a failure to communicate within the wormhole. And a lot of this has to do with the desire for OPSEC. And the problem is that when it's done in this way, the attempt at OPSEC actually does more damage than any breach of OPSEC would have done. And so because of this, I want to encourage anyone engaging in the wormhole to utilize the wormhole and wormhole command channels as appropriate. If there is something that is in the way of you doing so, then that needs to be fixed. If there is a security problem within the channel itself, or if there's a new policy that needs to be done, or whatever it is, it needs to be reinforced. I'm okay with using Mauro Holmes Intel and other channels like that for like moment-to-moment engagement, but
ad hoc.
you cannot assume that people have seen something just because it's been posted in there. There's no sound notification, there's no out-of-game notification, there's no anything. The only way that you can properly communicate to the rest of your team is through Discord, period.
Ash?
Yes.
So, DOA, I just want to say is that, I mean, we're trying to get everybody who's in there to just make a point of getting into spooky space, because voice communication is a lot easier.
Right, but even then, like anything that's going to impact other people, like for instance, anytime the HiSec is going to be rolled, that needs to be communicated, because there are people that information could be useful to, and you don't know whether or not they've gotten that information. So
No, I agree 100%. All the communication has to be through wormholes and wormholes command.
correct. So yeah, voice is going to be key, and ensuring that communication is properly echoed, at least in the Discord, is important, because the issue is that we've had several issues where there's a miscommunication, it's a he said, she said, and when I go back and look at it, all I can see is no one said anything, because it was a discussion on voice, it was a discussion in Mauro Holmes, and so I don't know, I can't actually piece together what really happened. All I have is that this person didn't talk to this person, and now they're upset, and while they're upset, they're having difficulty communicating the actual story well. So just, it's kind of a nightmare. So the best bet is, the more we can have a record of things. I know, I get it, OPSEC, cool, but part of security is availability. If your security is so disruptive that it's reducing effectiveness, then that is its own kind of problem. So we're going to focus on that moving forward.
Can I ask you to clarify the portion you said Holmes is going to become the headquarters? So is the expectation that over time more and more of the players of the Corp are going to base out of Holmes and conduct operations from there? Like
maybe headquarters, not the word. Maybe transportation hub. Maybe industrial.
I think that I don't know the full extent of it yet. At this point, like we've done the numbers, and it could be as simple as our invasion fleet has a cache there, along with other places that we project out of. Like it.
Mobile operations base.
Yeah, it's our mobile operations command, right? So I think that more and more people will.
I've been calling it Project Atlantis. Yeah,
Project Atlantis is a really good one. I really like that concept, or that visualization for it. But again, like, this isn't necessarily a mandatory thing, but the idea is that each one of the processes that we do is going to look at how it can use the wormhole to its advantage, right? Like, how can we use the fact that we have this wormhole to help our invasion fleets? How can we use it to help our FOB fleets? How can we, you know what I mean? And so as we identify points of value, we will move those operations, at least make a clone of it in the wormhole, so that way we can leverage them when we can. Does that make sense?
It does. I see it being more, the application of it being more practical the more people participate in it.
That's correct. Yeah.
Hey Ash.
Yes.
As a new player, I can tell you that it not only gives me anxiety, but I'm excited to move in because not only would it be more profitable, but you actually learn more of what the game's about.
Right. Yeah.
So As the person from the outside who isn't another, I guess, allied wormholer, what was the thought process that led to the decision of changing Holmes into this from having it be the new player way of getting their feet wet in wormhole space?
I mean, I think that it still can. I think it still does that, and I think that this actually better allows it to be that, because the more just general activity that we have in there, the safer it becomes for those new players to splash around in, as it were.
Yeah, let them see a fully developed wormhole. It doesn't matter that it's a C2.
Right. I think that so the major catalyst for this was our focus was to begin refining in Amaderia. The idea being was that if we do that, we can given the fact that we're going into a period of without, whatever solution we develop to compensate for that will be made better by having access to higher quality refinement centers. So securing better refinement was a priority. The issue is that with everything going on in LowSec, that is a bit rough at the moment. So, and on top of that, low-sec refinement is still not as good as null-sec refinement and industry and other bonuses. So we already have a wormhole that I already have problems because there's no leadership there. So there's squabbling, there's miscommunications, there's a clear lack of control going on that's causing systemic problems within the wormhole. And at the same time, our options to try to maximize our value of lowsec were having problems. And the God honest truth is that our solution is, as I said, a freighter load of Rakavine every single day that we run invasions, which has to be hauled all the way back home to Pimene. But I usually just leave around for a cache. And I've been talking about using the wormhole since the very beginning for various things like logistics and, being able to make things go from Jita to Pimene easily by just being patient and connecting and projecting into solitude. These are always ideas for how this wormhole could be useful. It's more that it's kind of like the idea of using Balgorns and Majors, right? We all knew that it could be done, but now that it's important, we're really thinking about how to make it happen. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So again, this isn't designed to be alarming to anyone. If anything, I would like to think of this as an evolution of what we were doing, or more, in fact, we have not actually dedicated a lot of attention into making our concepts for the wormhole actually happen. I haven't actually put in the ISK and the time and the effort and the attention and the leadership and the care to make it functional. And that fact has gotten to the point where now it's either do something about it or accept the fact that it is, a problem, and I choose to do something about it. And it just so happens that it also is really useful, and its particular usefulness has stood out due to recent events.
So, in the upcoming future, how much of leadership can the Alliance expect to start basing more out of the wormhole? Because honestly, I think the more leadership goes in there, the more people are going to follow you.
Again, it's difficult to think of things as basing. I already have a regular character. My projection into the wormhole is just as easy as my projection into my industrial character or onto my scouting character or anything else, right? It's about gaining tools. So most of the leadership at this point have some sort of high-level access character in the wormhole now, so that way we can pull the levers of power. And now that we have the structures online, we're going to start. I've already put into place a certain people. We just promoted Marcus. His entire job is just paying attention to where the wormhole is every day and how that could be useful to us. So things like that are happening.
Yeah, all of leadership has characters there with purpose, not just seeds. we have brought on Pez to be a direct line to, to the director level, and everything that comes out of the wormhole, anything that people want, any information that people want to get from the wormhole to leadership, if they're not there already, can go through him. Like, he is there for this exact purpose, to make sure that everyone feels that we have our finger on the pulse and that we aren't forgetting you, and that there is now a specific individual there who is an assigned point of contact, and you know for a fact that if you tell him something, it's going to make it to the right ears.
So the way that I understood Holmes as it currently stood was there were people there, but one of the I guess it was not conveyed correctly, or I maybe misinterpreted, but I was under the impression or the understanding that there was an issue of content drought, because there was just not enough, that NSC2 just does not provide enough for the amount of people that were there, and that is why you were pushing people in my direction to begin with. So I'm wondering now, with this choice to choose to have a soft mobile in logistics and utilities center in the C2, how this will impact that issue, which was something that which was I guess, I don't know if it even was a worry or a problem you had or was having or was going to have.
If you're expecting to go into the C2 for content, you're wrong.
Yeah, I think that's so what you're talking about is actually all the same issue. So the fact that the problem was a quote-unquote content drought isn't actually a content problem, it's a perspective issue. It's an expectation management issue. Like, people were going into the wormhole to go run wormhole sites and make wormhole money. And the key is that isn't what that wormhole is for. Its value is less in the fact that it has cool sites that make lots of money and kill sleepers, and way more about the fact that it is a C2 that is connected to everywhere in HiSec eventually. It is our sigil, and that is what its value is. And that is why I still say that people who are interested in wormholes for content need to look into Einstein-Rosenberg Brigade as an option, because you guys are the ones that are engaging with wormhole space as content. We are engaging with a wormhole as a tool.
That could mean that players that want to get into wormhole content and want to work with ERB can start in a training program that takes place in Holmes, and eventually are allowed or expected to show up in in ERB and their holdings.
So I would say to that.
So those are both pieces of the same problem, right? The reason why I focused more on sending people to ERB was because I didn't want people to have that expectation for the C2. And then once that got fixed, now it's like, okay, well, how do we get the actual value that we really wanted to get out of the C2 in the first place?
Ash, if I can just add, I mean, there was a player in there today who was realizing there wasn't much content, was asking, well, if he wants to do more interesting wormholes, obviously do. And so I told him, I suggest talk to Einstein Rosen Brigade. So I think there are still people who come there to learn and then want to move on to something interesting. And I mean, they have that option still. It's not like they're going to come into the wormhole and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think that the system is working. Like, I think that this is a really strong, like, end-to-end system. If somebody wants to up their game and maximize their productivity and be competitive with nullsec levels, even in our HiSec empire, then they can use our wormhole to their advantage to be able to do that. If a person wants to play around with spooky space as a way of like escalating themselves a little bit more in doing what they were doing, then there's that. If they want to use it to get to somewhere different every day, then there's that. But more importantly, if you go, man, living in a wormhole is where I want to be, then living in the C2 is not necessarily your ultimate destination. Probably someplace like Einstein-Rosenberg Brigade is your ultimate destination, and that's fine. That's literally the system working, you know.
Can I ask you a newbie question?
Sure.
If you could give me the 3 best things about living in a wormhole and the 3 worst things, what would they be? An hour wormhole, I should say.
That's an interesting question, and I'd like to give it more thought, and especially if I'm going to do 3 and 3. I would say that
number one worst thing is having to scan everything.
Yeah, the number one worst thing is that there's this built-in overhead to everything that you do, thanks to the wormhole, which is one of the reasons why we want to do this, so as that way we can minimize individual overhead.
Gotcha.
The biggest use of it is, or its biggest advantage is the fact that it is a door to everywhere. If you know how to use your patience correctly, and along the timeline, you connect to everywhere.
The more spread out we are, the more useful it is.
Yeah, if we want to have caches, the idea. So one of my goals is that we're going to have points of interest or points of focus within the alliance, and maybe even color code them. And so every day you're going to be able to log into the Discord and be like, oh, the wormhole is green today, and that means it's right next to Dodixie. Oh, wormhole is, here today. And so you'll be able to watch to see when the wormhole's useful to you, and it may take a week or two for it to show up where you need it to be, but it'll be there eventually. And that's just another tool to add to your tool belt. That's all it's there for. It's not actually designed to be quote unquote lived in that classic sense.
You know what we could add, Ash?
Because you just splash in and out from HiSec. What's up?
You can add a tracker that tracks how the nearest published Thera connection to the HiSec wormhole.
There's all kinds of things that we can do. But at any rate, I think that I'm going to shut this down now because I don't want to get too far in the weeds about it right this moment. But just a lot of stuff to get people in the thinking about it. And we are going to be spending a lot of time moving a lot of forces into the wormhole. And so if you're interested in contributing to our defenses, getting a QRF alt, you're never going to stop hearing it. There's been significant, there's been instances just this last couple of weeks that if people had QRF alts set up correctly, then we could have, done something really cool, but people didn't, and so we couldn't. And so, it's one of those things, you can't do it when it's time to have it. You have to do it a month or 2 or 3 ahead of time. So make your alts now, start training them early, put them in position, put one of them in the wormhole, put one of them in Amaderia, train them into our QRF doctrine ships, get them in that ship, logged out where you need to be, so that way when the shit hits the fan, when the moment comes, you can just simply log in the correct character and you're good to go. That's the secret.
So if I may say one final thing, and then we can move on. So Einstein-Rosen Brigade is not very much a group, an alliance for brand new people, and especially people who are just like, I'm new to the game, and the first 3 months and I'm suddenly in wormhole space. And it's not because we don't have the people to teach. It's just that it's a time thing, and it's just in general it's a lot of work, but it's something I've been willing to take up the mantle for ERB for a while now. So as far as getting new people into wormhole space and teaching them the wormhole stuff, it's something I've been meaning to speak with my own alliance about, but I'm willing to also take up that mantle here with you guys, because it seems that that's just killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be your feeder corp.
I mean, I think that that's an excellent arrangement. I can say this about ERB. One of the reasons why I back them up is because just knowing Gabby personally, and also knowing Lichgrave for as long as I have, I can tell you that anybody I send there, I don't have to be worried about whether or not they're going to be taken care of, whether or not they're going to have a good leader, whether or not they're going to have somebody who will give them the answers if they seek it. You know, Emma and Lichgrave both, along a lot of the other people in VRB, are just some of the best people to hang around with. You know, I guess when I choose who I'm going to team up with, it's the corporations that I would be part of if I didn't have to do this shit for you guys.
Gee, thanks, Ash.
No problem. Really, all of this is just one long, ambitious long con to get Emma to be my manager.
It's a really nice velvet couch. I'm gonna sit over here. Ooh, look, a VIP sign. Damn, that's pretty. I'm gonna polish it.
Anyway, okay. So I have less than an hour before our dev stuff, or about an hour. So let's go ahead and move on. I do want to talk a little bit about some of the upcoming stuff. I want to talk about Osiris, Project Osiris. I don't think I've actually brought this up very much yet. So as part of the vision that I was talking about before, we are trying to build a better EVE Online. And as part of that, we're trying to build better tools. So Bayonex has been working very, very hard in an almost detriment to his health way to get the Alliance Auth process fixed to not use the actual Alliance Auth proper system, and now it uses our personal proprietary system. So we manage the tokens, we control all of the permission systems, which on the one hand gives us unrivaled flexibility moving forward because now it's 100% our project, but it does mean that we had to rebuild the wheel in several key and critical ways. I know that there's been a lot of problems with things like the Rosie bot not being able to be very easily updated. The server has a whole bunch of permissions that are kind of confusing. Some of the channels are not great. We have a test server that I've linked a few times, and if anybody's interested in it, I will post a link to it actually in the meeting channel. If you want to go in there and check it out, give me any feedback that you want to. Our goal, or my goal now, is to wire up the bot to that test server to make it so it has all of the functionality that we want to. The bot now runs, it connects to the database, it does auth. It's really cool. Our auth process is actually theoretically live. I'll probably hand it over to Bayonex to talk a little bit more about that. But in general, we're at the precipice of everything being super exciting, and we're entering into what amounts to a development sprint for the next 8 days or so, where we're trying to get as much of our tools done and functional as possible. So that is predominantly our tool development program I call Project Osiris, and it's divided into several sub-projects. Right now we're mostly focusing on Project Horus and Project Thoth. Project Horus is the revamp of our invasion tracker. So the goal is that you'll be able to log in, you'll be able to see future events, you'll be able to sign up for events, you'll be able to see what events you've what fleets you've taken part in, how much you earned, how much you've earned collectively, how much you've done compared to other people, what ships you brought, what ships you bring, what ships you're going to bring, all that kind of stuff is in the spirit of the Wolfpack fleet web tools. We're building a web tool system like that. And then also in tandem to that, we're building a better Discord bot. So we now have it to the point where we can just do any development process that we want on the bot. It's tied into the database. I'm getting the other APIs up and going and active and live. And then we can really start doing some cool stuff. And so I don't know if we're going to get a server migration where it's okay, now everybody come over to this server, or if we'll just magically transform this server into the new server. I want the latter of the two, by the way.
The latter of the two involves you hitting the Discord rate limit so many times with that bot, it's not even funny.
Yeah. We'll have to see. It's it's going to be a process one way or another. It's just going to be see which one is the more bigger headache. But yeah, and we expect to see some of this like conversion process over the next over the weekend. So Bayonex, why don't you talk a little bit?
Not a whole lot to talk about right now at this moment. I did just push live last night. The first iteration of changes to the Aderon.org site to bring in the new user management and permission system that is no longer tied to auth in any way, shape, or form. So you can go there now. You can log in. You can add all of your alts. You can request roles, which the roles that are currently in the system are just kind of dummy roles, so we have to finish fleshing those out. And you can also connect your Discord to your account.
So slowly or quickly, we'll be moving more and more of our systems, or at least onlining new systems that will involve having authenticated through this process. So starting now, you know, you can begin the process of at least like checking the box and, okay, well, I've given you your token, congratulations. But you know, sooner rather than later, hopefully one of the tools will be useful enough to you that it'll just be like, okay, now I'm dialed in. This is going to allow better flexible use of tools like our skills calculator, our fitting tools, even things like Lioneer's Eve Workbench, you know, and other such things. We're working to make our systems work with all of that. So, as I said, like, I know it sounds super hoity-toity, but we are doing nothing short of just trying to build a better Eve. So we're working with a lot of different people and have some very ambitious ideas about how to make things cool. And right now we have probably about 5 or so experienced active devs that are on some level of like dedicated to helping out with this whole thing, and about a half a dozen or so other people who are relatively amateur to software development, but are nonetheless looking into this as an opportunity to at least get an insight into it, which I, as a personal note, recommend to anybody. You know, in these trying times in which we are stuck at home and need a hobby, I can tell you that you can do significantly worse than spending your time learning how to do development and web development through the creation of these tools. And there are lots of very patient, you know, just like we help each other learn how to play Eve, there are people teaching each other various different skills in how to do development, web development, art, sound, you know, data structures, etc. And, you know, like we've been having some fun, you know, ideas about deployment strategies and, you know, continuous integration. We are legitimately attempting to create as close as possible to a 100% legitimate agile development shop for the purposes of creating dev tools, or for the purposes of creating Eve third-party tools as a focus. And so if that is something that has ever excited you, now is probably one of the best opportunities that you have to learn that without paying a whole bunch of money for college. And it'll be better for you too, trust me. Anything else I'm missing about that? Yeah, you can, if any of this interests you guys, you can always DM me. And I would also like to stress that you don't need to actually join the proper convocation of Empyreans in order to, you know, be part of our movement.
Which I assure you is the most annoying thing to code ever.
Yeah, that was part of our discussion. It was like, wait, so you're telling me that there's that somebody in the Alliance and somebody not in the Alliance could have the same exact permission level? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I don't like that. But here we are. So
well, here we are building out the coalition framework that CCP hasn't built.
Exactly. We're going to use the tools that CCP has given us and build the tools that we need along with other developers that are building tools that we need in order to build the best experience that we can. All right, well, I guess I'm going to just close up by saying that invasions are coming back very, very soon. Almost came back this cycle, but today, very soon, I'm going to be doing the stuff with CCP, and a lot of other, like this dev stuff has required a lot of my personal time and also a lot of Squish's time. So all of the fits have at least been rebuilt and are undergoing review. Minor conduits are definitely able to be done. Once again, basically all we need is anybody to take charge and just move people from one location to the other and register them in our fleet tracker to be able to run a minor fleet. It's not that hard, and it's a great place for a new player or a newer FC to get some experience under their chops or under their belt. But we should be returning to like proper major invasion fleets, I'm assuming next week. That being said, with Chapter 3 coming soon, every week is touch and go. We'll just put it that way. And I encourage you all to, instead of being frustrated by that, be excited. One thing I will say is that I have ordered Fonsui and the rest of the fleet dudes to not only review what changes need to be made and not make any changes that are not needed to be made, but in addition to that, we are going to create an upgrading strategy to allow oh my god, there's CCP Aurora. We're going to make an updating strategy for everybody, so that way, like, you just show up with your fit that was good enough, that was from the previous doctrine, and we will trade you or just give you the modules that it takes to just be the new configuration. The Alliance will eat that cost. That's the goal. CCP Aurora, quick, can somebody tell me, can a Polaris get into the site? Because if so, I think that's probably going to do better than an assault frigate.
Tell me that doesn't look like a Talican ship.
It is very Talican looking. It's certainly not Jovian.
I've always said this. Yeah, I've always said that this looks like it.
Looks like what?
Looks like a toothpick.
That is you can use a toothpick that looks like that, all right?
It does look a lot like the Talican wreckage inside of wormhole space. The stuff that, a lot of people might have even equated to sleepers, but are not. Things like static gates. Does look kind of like a tent stake. Here, hold on. Where's my guy? First of all, I'm going to right click, orbit at current. Second of all, I'm going to...
The Polaris Enigma frigate is classed as a corvette.
Huh. That's really funny.
So I guess it's allowed in everywhere.
Well, no, because there's actually places that a corvette isn't allowed, isn't there?
I don't know. No, only in your dreams, Ash.
No, I don't think... Is a corvette allowed in a faction warfare site? I thought they got rid of that. I thought that was one of the things that doesn't get allowed in there. Like, there are acceleration gates that don't allow corvettes, is what I'm trying to say.
I guess they can always just teleport in if they really wanted to.
That's true.
There's definitely a mission on the Greased Epic arc that doesn't let them in.
Yeah, but then again, they could probably push a couple of buttons and it'll let them in.
All right. Anything else that we need to do? Surgical Strike has come out. Resistance changes, damage buffs. There are some more changes coming soon to help compensate for things. But by and large, reports that I've heard is that the Abyss is trickier, as was expected. But we're working on advice and tools to compensate for that. By and large, it is fixed by having higher expectations on your own piloting as opposed to upgrading the ship, given the fact that a lot of these ships are kind of pushed to their extreme as it was. However, in things like missions, I've heard that the impact is minimal, and if anything, the situation may, in some ways it could have been improved, especially like things like burner missions, from what I've heard from Hateless. So be cautious when going out there with your blingy stuff. Your X-types are not nearly as strong as they once were, but the activities will either be able to be done or will be more profitable because they're harder to be done, one way or another.
Did you keep an eye on the meeting chat, the text chat?
Up until recently.
I was wondering if I didn't hear you mentioning something. Oh.
I did mention you, but I didn't want to bring too much focus to it. But at this point, we do have hauling services. CFO, Cars from Orbit is our official hauling program, which is mostly jump freighter based. But we now have people who are hauling in high sec again consistently. So if you need things moved, let us know. Anything else that we need to cover? You're really quiet, whoever that was.
Waldo here. Is there like a minimal requirement for shipwise to get into the wormhole? Can I enter in a cruiser, or do I need a...
To enter into the wormhole, doesn't have a, smaller is actually kind of better, right? Just a simple scanning ship is a good first ship to go in there. Again, I wouldn't focus on running the site, so it's not like bringing a combat ship to run the PvE, because the PvEs ran, it's not like Null, where like an unlimited amount of anomalies spawn. It is a tool for you to utilize. So it allows battleship-sized hulls, so you can't bring a freighter in there, but you can bring a deep space transport, you can bring probing ships, all that kind of stuff, whatever you want. There is bookmarks, so that way you can just basically use our Pathfinder to just know where the wormhole goes and just go there. So you don't even need probes, but I still recommend them.
Yeah, if you're going in there looking for red crosses, you're not going to find any.
Right.
If you're going in there because you're like, hey, I want to go do an invasion, and I'm going to drop 3 battleships and just sit on them here and log out, and then see where the hole opens up tomorrow, and then you're one jump from an invasion, maybe. There you go.
Right. So one example of this could be that we wake up and see where our hole is on the beginning of an invasion cycle, and if it happens to be closer to an invasion than Pimene, then we just project out of the wormhole.
I was thinking more like indie stuff, like mining, gas mining, or even...
I mean, those sites are mostly tapped out, to be honest. But, I mean, the equipment to do that is also mostly inside.
Yeah, the resources to be drawn from that specific solar system itself are minimal and pretty much spoken for.
Right.
Okay, so I can use like factories. That's a better idea.
Yeah, factories, PI, reactions, refining, connectivity. These are its primary value.
Yeah, do some PI in that wormhole. That's a really good thing to do in there.
Mm-hmm. To that effect, Jay Coons has been buying back PI now for the production of fuel blocks. So, and also ice that's mined. So I'm really happy about that. Bottom line is that if you are concerned about like making it, figuring out something, making it make sense, oh, I don't have the money for the equipment, or I don't have the time to move things around, or if there's something that's blocking you, then you should look into how the Alliance can best help you remove those blockers, because we have created system after system after system of how to remove blockers. And so anybody who's interested in taking part of programs, and people that are interested in utilizing the advantages that they convey, I encourage you both to begin to use our stuff. Like, for instance, I needed 5 hawks because we're going to be doing a competition here. Which, Dirty Scooby, are you here? I said I was going to give you time. You want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, wouldn't mind.
Go for it. That's a good one.
Right. Thank you, Ash. The first event we're putting on I'm putting on as part of the as the event coordinator is actually happening tonight. It's kind of to celebrate the skills for kills for communication event that CCP's just done, and also to kind of showcase our day one Kestrel. It's basically going to be on at midnight tonight, Eve time, and it's up to 25 people to enter. The first round will be 5 groups of 5, all flying the T1 Day 1 Kestrel. They will all be yeeted separately as groups of 5 out to nullsec. The only 2 rules are you're not allowed to leave grid, and last man or lady standing wins that group. Once all of the winners are back in Peme, so quickest exit, so either fly to a station and shoot it or pod yourself, round 2 will be all the winners from round 1. They will get to yeet again in the same ships, and again, same rules apply. And we're going to have prizes for the winner of each round, which is the T5 Dark Hawk, and the winner of the final round will the Ghost Bird skin for the Hawk.
Right. So the winner. So basically, up to 25 people can compete with this tonight. We'll divide them evenly into heats, up to 5 person per heat. Each group will yeet out and kill each other, and the last person living will make it into the finals. All 5 finalists will get one of these T5 Hawk fit builds. I'm not sure if it's exactly this one, but something to this equivalent, Hawk and build. And the winner will actually get, not that, this Hawk Ghostbird skin. So you'll get the Hawk and the skin if you win tonight. And that is just the first of one of several activities that we're hoping to start doing as an alliance.
Yeah. And it's going to be in Peme, or at least that's where we're going to be using.
So, but to that point, I communicated to our industry team, and I was like, hey, by the way, I need 5 Hawks. Is that possible? And like 2 days later, they're done, and I just buy them because I don't have to worry about it, because every other step of the way has been worried about already. And that's pretty damn convenient. And it's a level of convenience that everybody in the Alliance should be able to leverage. Okay, I want to give everybody one last chance to bring up any topics before I shut it down and start looking into getting ready for the next thing to happen.
Industry question.
Go for it.
If I want to start building stuff like for the Corps and for myself, and I don't have like a big blueprint library, is it possible to buy BBCs? And I mean, do you have a service?
Yes. Likely you won't be buying them. You just we have a lot of copies available. It's just free to use.
Cool.
And any BPO that we don't have, that we identify, we generally get and start researching. So, yeah. Interestingly enough, we have significantly more capabilities right now than we have established need. So if you know what you need to build, the Alliance is ready to either build it for you or to enable you to build it yourself very, very easily, almost without exception. We have resources, we have blueprints, we have the tools, we have the facilities. Like, it is a want for direction. I'll put it that way.
Sounds very good.
Jay Coons is stressing. I mentioned earlier, Jay Coons has been doing buyback for PI, specifically mechanical parts, and robotics, as well as coolant, are all key pieces of that. All right, well, I think that about wraps it up for the meeting proper then. The next one will be next Tuesday. Again, Tuesday evening U.S. time, so 6 o'clock Pacific time, which I believe is 01 Eve time, Wednesday morning Eve time. So we will be doing a meeting then. We did just do a podcast. Savage Sheep 89, thank you for joining us down around Hole Steve Online. We just did an episode of Eve Universe podcast, which I think went really, really, really well. So we'll be editing that up and getting it out on Talking Station soon. Yeah, I guess I'll just finish up by saying that obviously myself and all of the leaders, the directors, are available, should be basically have open door policies, and the directors and the CEOs, who are the members of the inner council, obviously have the authority and need to know access to address issues. So, as with everything, it's spooky and dangerous out there, guys, both in real life and in Eve. And only by communicating and working with one another will we be able to get through with the most that we possibly can, right? Like, I mean, that's how we win. So, thank you guys for coming with me on this journey so far. And I'm really excited about our future.
The power they would have. They would be.
Disk Space, thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole with Steve Online. Okay.